Okay, for the homily, I need our first communicants to come up here. Those on this side, you're going to make a line here. All those sitting on these pews, you're going to make a line right here. Okay? Make a line. Start here, right at me. Make a line. Kind of go around the altar a little bit. There's a lot. If you're on this side, you go around that this way. Okay? Can you make a line? Can you maybe go back this way? There you go. Keep going back. There you go. We're going to make a line. There you go. Behind the altar. There you go. We're going to make a line. Okay, kids, now remember, a couple weeks ago you had a retreat with Wendy Rapay. She's our Faith for Direction person. Remember that? Okay. And one of the things that they did is they read a poem from a guy who's going to become a saint. It's John Cardinal Newman, or Cardinal Newman, as they call him. You remember? Here's what you heard at the retreat. Newman's poem said, God created me to do definite service, some definite service. God has committed some work to me which God has not committed to another. I have a mission. I may never know what it is in life. I shall be told it in the next. I am a link in a chain, a bond of connection between persons. So what I want you all to do, I want you to join hands. Maybe, Wendy, you want to help here? We're going to make a chain here. So we're going to make a line. Can you all join hands? I want to be able to see everybody. There we go. Can you kind of squeeze it a little bit more? Can you squeeze it? Can you all join? Why don't you come over here? You be first. You'll be right next to me. There, how's that? Okay, y'all join hands. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to squeeze your hand on the end here next to me, and I want you to pass on the squeeze. And the person at the end, when you feel the squeeze, you raise your hand. Okay? Ready? Pass it on. No, just a squeeze. Person on the end, raise their hand. Go ahead. Pass on the squeeze. Pass on the squeeze. Pass it on. There we go. We got it. Did you get it yet? Well, let's try it again. There's a link here. Pass that on. Pass that on. Now raise your hand. There we go. Okay. Now we got it now. Now we're going to try. We're going to get tricky now. I'm going to not just do one squeeze, but I'm going to do some number, and I want you to pass that number on. Okay? And then at the end, I want the last person to say how many squeezes you've got. It's going to be different. It's pretty tricky. You got to wait. Did you get it done? Did you get it on the end? Not yet. Okay. Did you get it on the end? How many did you get? Okay. You got 2, and how many did you get? 2. I think you're supposed to get 3 over here, weren't you? Did you get that test? I don't know. Yeah, more than 1, whatever. Okay. Now we're going to get trickier. Listen, I think you can do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass on a message. You don't have to hold hands anymore. I'm going to pass on a message. I'm going to whisper in your ear, and you're going to pass it on. And then you're going to say what the message is. Okay, you ready for this? It's going to be pretty tricky. Ready? Turn my mic off. Let's see what happens here. Did you get the message? Just wait. We're waiting for the other side. The message. It may not have gotten well over here. What's the message you guys got? Peace be with you. That's the message you guys got. You got a different message. What message did you guys get? Faith, hope, and love. Did you kind of get that somewhere? Maybe. All right. So what happens, if you all were important to share that message, right? And if somebody didn't pass it on, then the last person didn't get the message, right? We're all a link to pass on the message. Okay, kids, you can go back. Let's give them a hand. Right, thanks, guys. In the gospel, Jesus says the same message. He doesn't whisper it, but he says it really loud. Peace be with you. He's proclaiming it, especially because the disciples were hiding. You just heard that. It's after the crucifixion. They got word earlier that I think the tomb is empty. I'm not sure what that's about. So they were afraid that people would think that they took the body and hid it away. They were afraid that people would come after them and crucify them just like Jesus. So they had the doors locked. They were afraid, and Jesus comes in. He comes in with a positive message. Now, many times, it's tough to pass on a positive message. It's easy to pass on a negative message. You know that. You hear something, you read something, and you want to pass it on to somebody. Now, you've heard me say this before, but let me say it again. Whenever you hear something negative about somebody, a piece of gossip or anything, you got to ask yourself 3 questions. Is it true? So find out. Is it true? Is it loving? Is it said out of love and care? Third thing, is it necessary? Do you really need to pass it on? And if you can say yes, it is true, it is loving, it is necessary, then pass it on. Share it with somebody. Send it on social media. But if it's not, then keep your mouth shut. There's a neuroscientist. His name is Rick Hansen. They did studies on the messages that we give to one another. What they found out is that people will retain negative messages or negative thoughts or words right away. But for a positive message to be retained or kept, you got to focus on it or think about it. Their studies say that if you hear something good, even if it's about yourself, you gotta think of it or dwell with it for at least 15 seconds. Otherwise you lose it. Otherwise you forget it. But negative stuff, we can hang on to that for a long time. For example, many times after Mass, we get people to say, "Nice job, and this is great, and we love the music and everything." I could hear 99 positive messages. Oh, thanks. And then I hear that one negative message. "Yeah, priest, you just didn't bow low enough. I don't think you got it." I hang on to that message. And I forget the 99 good ones. We all do it all the time. To hang on to something positive. Even positive messages from Jesus. Sometimes we just kind of let it go. You hear it again and again. The most familiar phrase that Jesus says in all of the Gospels is, "Fear not." Don't be afraid. Have no fear. But many times we still don't get it. We live in fear. We're fear of spiders. We're fear of mosquito bites. We're fear of the weather. We're fear of coffee. Or we're afraid of people who look different. Or people who worship differently. Or people who sound different. And all of a sudden we start fearing everything about them. We fear death. And we fear about what happens to us after we die. Well, Easter is all about overcoming fear. Easter is all about recognizing the resurrection and not getting stuck with just the negative messages about the world. I mean, you listen to the news, you do social media, and most of it is just trying to bring something or someone down. Our faith is meant to be different. It's meant to be good news, especially in this Easter season. Now we gather around the table and we say Jesus died and rose. But many of us just focus on the death part. We just say, God's out to get me. God's going to punish me. My life is awful. I'm not sure what's going to happen. As opposed to thinking of the resurrection piece. Now you got to think of this. Throughout Jesus' life, he's compassionate, he's forgiving, he's loving. He's always reaching out to those people who felt like they didn't belong. And then somehow we think now that Jesus died and rose and he's in heaven, that all he wants to do is punish people now. He just wants to judge. Where'd that come from? At the Eucharist, we celebrate the death and resurrection of Christ. We celebrate the good news. Now, first communicants, you're going to receive the Eucharist for the first time in just a bit. But part of that is you receive it to pass it on. This day is not just meant to say, okay, here's the body of Christ, and you get it and say, oh, okay, fine, thanks. No. This day is about you becoming the body of Christ. You receive the Eucharist to share the Eucharist, to pass it on. The Eucharist doesn't end at the end of Mass. The Eucharist continues when we go out to or back to your classroom and your workplaces and your homes. The message that God says you are loved and you are forgiven. God says, I believe in you and you can make the world better. For all of us, when we gather together as church, especially at Easter time, we're meant to rejoice. We're meant not to just hold it here and have good feelings during this time at church and then go back out there and start complaining, start worrying, start fearing. As Christians, we are invited to trust God. We're invited to believe beyond ourselves, to believe the good news. Christ is risen. And how we do that is when we receive Eucharist, we become Eucharist, we receive the body of Christ to be the body of Christ and pass it on. Cardinal Newman said, we have a mission. Everyone has a mission. Perhaps today is your mission. Go make a difference. Pass it on to someone. So I'm going to show you how that works. So at this point, we say what we believe as church. So I want the kids to demonstrate that for us, okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to stand up on your kneeler, okay? On the kneeler part, okay? Stand up on your the first communicants. You stand up. We want to see you. First communicants. Can you see them all? Can you see them in the back? Can you see them? No? Someone? Okay. Stand up on your seat. You might need help from your parents. Stand up on your seat. Parents, hold them. Stand up on your seat. And you're going to face back here. Face me back here. Face. Parents, hang on to them. I don't want to lose anybody. All right. Okay, kids. So what I want you to do is I want you to yell out, we do believe. We practiced this earlier. Remember that? We do believe. Because you're going to represent all of us. Okay? You ready for this? So I want to hear you. Okay. Do you believe in God, the Creator who called you into life and knows your name and loves you?
We do believe.
Very good. You can do better than that, though. Do you believe in Jesus who loves you and died and rose to give you new life?
We do believe.
Do you believe in the Holy Spirit who lives in you and makes you holy?
We do believe.
You're doing good. Let's have everybody join them now. Do you believe that we are all children of God? We are all brothers and sisters in Christ, and God loves us all?
We do believe.
Do you believe that God forgives you and calls you to forgive one another?
We do believe.
Do you believe that because of Jesus you will live forever with Him in eternity?
We do believe.
This is our faith. It's as simple as that. This is what we believe. This is what you're going to receive in the Eucharist, this belief. Now you go live it. Okay, kids, you can drop down and everybody stand up. We have some kids doing the petitions.